And we're back with Mystic Fix on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL. I'm Julia Gordon-Bramer. We've just been talking to author and Dr. Shelley Kerr about her fascinating book, Past Lives in Ancient Lands and Other Worlds, Understanding Your Soul's Journey Through Time. Next up is another Llewellyn author, Karen Joy, who wrote Lost Soul, Wise Soul. We're going to talk about how souls are incarnated and why we're here, as well as healing the hard stuff. Let's listen now. I am so happy to welcome Karen Joy to Mystic Fix today. Karen is a practicing psychologist. You've been a psychologist for decades, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, and also author of her latest book, Lost Soul, Wise Soul, How Challenging Past Lives Shape Our Future. That's with Llewellyn Publishers. So
That's right.
thank you so much. I was intrigued by your title, Lost Soul, Wise Soul. Can you talk about that first?
I'd love to. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Yes, Lost Soul, Wise Soul, we chose that because it's about how we get lost on our many lives and come back and develop wisdom. Like we eventually develop wisdom over time. So it's Lost Soul, Wise Soul. So to really be wise on the planet, we learn by experience. You have to go through those darker, heavier, lost lives.
So some of these lives could be in this present life, right? I mean, I think of my own life and I think of like, okay, I was one sort of person as a child and another sort of person with my first husband. And, and I've been evolving and learning and growing as hopefully we all do. But you're talking also about past lives previous to this incarnation we're in.
That's right. That's what I found anyway from doing regressions. And I started doing regressions because as a psychologist, people started going into past lives. And that's why I decided to focus on that eventually. Yes. So when we have a lot of past life, we have a lot of lives, and those lives are very different, very different. And we're learning so much during those lives. If you think about how complicated humans are, it's really not going to be understood in one lifetime. So
Sure.
that's what it's about, how we go on this journey from the beginning when we're very naive, if you like, on the planet. And then we're looked after, we're in tribes. And after we come, because tribes are tight and close and, you're guided very strongly. And then we gradually go it alone and get lost, usually in various ways. Some people become victims, some people become perpetrators, but most become something of both.
So it's kind of like Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, or in the tarot, we have the major arcana, which is sort of the story of beginning at the fool card and evolving and going through all our trials. Okay.
Exactly. That the tarot fits very, very neatly with that.
This is what I love about spirituality, that wisdom is the same across the ages. It's the same story, when we're looking at religions, when we're looking at all these different practices. But you said something that intrigued me. You said that your clients or your patients, that you were not trying to regress them into past lives originally. The stuff just came up. Can you talk about that a little?
Yes, I can. And it happens very easily. It happens very easily with some people.
Mm-hmm.
One of the first ones that came in, a lady who felt very burdened, very, very burdened, and she was overweight. Later on, we found out she was doing 4 lives in one, which is another interesting thing. But she was very burdened with her life and felt very heavy and was very heavy. And I was taking her into this feeling of feeling weighed down, heavy. And the next minute, just like that, she's in Egypt she had 2 sons with her. They'd been digging a grave into a cave, like she was a slave. And then they were killed along with like the pharaoh who was buried, or whoever it was. Then they were killed, and they had all these rocks coming down. So they had created a cascade of, as the entrance into
an avalanche kind of.
Yeah, an avalanche, and killed them. And that was one of the really early ones. And I think she did that. It was either the first or second session that I had with her as a psychologist. And it was just taking people into their emotions instead of trying to like get control of it, say an anxiety or a panic or fear or heaviness or whatever it was. I would ask them to go into it, go into the feelings, you see, like, because I want to release them. I don't want to avoid them because that's what they've been trying to do for ages. That was the way I did my therapy.
So getting back to that particular woman, are you saying that her physical heaviness, this was a symbolic heaviness in the avalanche that killed her? Is that
well, I'm not sure because she was overweight, but I think she just felt burdened with life, and maybe eating was one of the things. So she felt burdened with her life. Later on, her guy, and she had that ability to go in very easily. Later on, we found out that she was doing these 4 lives in one, which simply meant that she'd been taking it easy in her lives, like going along, having a nice time for about 28 lives, I think they said. And then the guides had a little chat to her and said, she needed to take on more challenges. So then, like we do it as humans, we go from one extreme to the other. She's gone to the other extreme. So she had to come and see me for quite a few years before she got free. She did eventually get free.
So by acknowledging that, or remembering that these have happened, it brings some kind of healing. This makes something click.
Well, what is very interesting about that is that person had died in shock, right, in that past life. Like thought they were doing the right thing, and then suddenly they're dying, right, after doing this hard work. So there's a shock situation. It's always to do with the shock. When these lives seem to be carried over, I can't say always, but nearly always. And so that was a shock. And so then she's died suddenly with hurt, anger, or bitterness, or confusion. So when we die in a confused, angry, unhappy, or hanging on state, not wanting to die state, we often get stuck. Because when we actually create our reality, and we're slowed down by this body. But when we haven't got a body anymore, we're creating it immediately. So a lot of the time, I'm rescuing souls from past lives where they've been stuck, and that bleeds into their current life. That's why I say in the title, Challenging Past Lives, Save Our Future. They're bleeding in because they need to be released. So, and that's common. Like the other therapists who do this work, the Michael Newton Institute, for example, a lot of them are rescuing souls who've been stuck, and it's carrying over. So the learning, let's think of it this way, the learning has happened or is in the process of happening, and because we're having all those experiences to learn, but it hasn't sort of been gelled or totally put together yet, and they're in fear, not realizing that the learning's happened. You don't need to stay in fear or anger or upset anymore.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes sense. I hope that's clear.
Yeah. How you address it in your book, Lost Soul, Wise Soul, how souls begin and enter lives on Earth. And I was wondering if you could talk about that a little bit. How you would find out such information, for one, or
just by going back. Like when you're doing past life regressions, like I am, you've got people going back to all different stages of development in their lives, and some of them, the very first time that they've had a traumatic experience, then sometimes that's stuck in the current life even now. So it can go back 30,000 years, like thousands and thousands of years, right back to an earlier life, what we just talked about, where there's some of that earlier life bleeding in to their current life. And so then I get the information. That's how I got the information, because we'd be releasing them, and it'd be an early life. They don't know much about the planet or don't understand much. And so so that they're starting to learn. But a lot in early lives, usually we seem to be, I think we incarnate in fairly tight tribal situations, because the tribe is very important. Tribes are very important because they create this sort of safety. Now you've got to fit in with the tribe. If you don't fit in, then you're on, and that would be when you're starting to evolve and develop your own individuality. But in the beginning, being in a tribe is very important because it's safe, and the tribe has got rules and you know, customs and everything, and you fit in with them, so you're protected by the tribe. And there's some cases in there where people talk about how protected they feel
Yeah.
with their
Well,
situation.
and you also address that we all have sort of a dual role of victim and perpetrator, correct?
We can do, most of us do. There's a few souls who come from other places, you know, that haven't first incarnated on the earth, who are sort of experienced souls, you might say, and they sometimes come in and don't sort of get caught up in being perpetrators, but they end up having a lot of victim lives usually to find
Oh,
out. Yeah, and they find it hard. Like, I remember one lady saying, I said, why did you come, like her soul, why did you come to planet Earth? Because, you know, you've been in very light, lovely places before. Why did you come? She said, because it's so beautiful and because it's so real and so solid. Like, we forget who we are because it's so real, and so other places aren't as real and as, you know, solid
oh,
as. So she came because it looked so beautiful, and then she got caught up with all this human stuff that we do, and all this deception and
yeah.
everything that happens as humans, because we don't know who we really are, and
So
was
when
struggling with that.
when you are when you meet a patient or anyone who is, you know, horribly victimized in some way, let's just say they were a lifetime of sexual abuse or assault or something like that, how do you, as the doctor or even as a friend, how do you make peace with that? I mean, you wouldn't just shrug it off and say, oh, past life karma, you know.
Oh, no. We, as humans, that's in our body.
Uh-huh.
Those experiences, well, we know, you know, they can make you very ill. So they're in our body. So well, I was sexually abused as a child myself, so I can give you that example. And it's taken me a long time to release that and to be fully free of that. And I have a lot of clients, of course, who then come to me, people who
Uh-huh.
come to me who've had that sort of abuse. So it's not, I sort of, the people I'm getting probably aren't at the beginning of that journey. Most of them have been, because I'm doing regressions now, I'm not doing psychology anymore, really. I'm doing regressions, but I've just
Uh-huh.
had that background. But when they come in, it does give you a bigger perspective, because if you're taken into the past and then you find out that maybe you were a perpetrator, or maybe you've been victimized before and you're feeling guilty about something, that is playing into your creation of the reality.
Uh-huh.
You know, in other words, you see yourself as a victim and you see yourself as weak, you have taken advantage of. That's the way this system works to a large degree. Like,
Okay.
what you give out is what you sort of
Right.
are attracting to yourself.
So when
Yeah.
we hurt others, we actually suffer ourselves and carry that along as well.
Absolutely, because like, I just had a lady recently who killed in a past life, and she was attracted to narcissists, and I asked the guides why. Well, why is she attracted to narcissists? They said she's attracted to narcissists because she's carrying that guilt deep inside her. Now, at the end of the life where she killed her partner, who was a bit violent, but she was a very hard person too, she didn't feel any guilt at all, or she didn't seem to. She just said, well, I'm glad I had a happy life, you know, without that abuse. But the guide said, whenever we're acting outside of who we really are, and who we really are loving beings, we are going to carry some of that in our system, within us. So yes, you can see people who don't have any remorse about killing, but deep down, that's still going to come to the surface sometime.
Yeah. So Karen, how do people work with you? If somebody said, I want to do a past life regression with Karen Joy, how can they reach you?
They go to my website, which is called lifebetweenlivesregression.com. Though you might find, if you put in Karen Joy past life regressions, it'll probably come up if you do a search. And yes, and then I have an online booking system, and I am booked ahead. Like, I am a few months, sometimes a few more than a
That's
few months
great. Uh-huh.
to get to see me. but I'm very happy to see anybody who'd like to see me. And I do have clients in America. Actually, I have clients all around the world because I
So
do
you
Zoom
can do this
sessions.
online. Do you do
Oh
this like
yeah,
through Zoom or?
through
Mhm.
Zoom, and it works very well. I've never felt, apart from technological problems, if there are any, but
Uh-huh.
there very rarely is. Luckily, we seem to be looked after. that's,
Mhm.
that's what's funny. And one day, just recently, it stopped. The thing went down right at the end of a 3.5-hour session, and that was
Oh,
seemed like they said, "Oh, we've got to let it." I don't know why, but yeah, we seem to be looked after with technology.
uh-huh.
But yes, so but it's just the same. It's just the same as them being in this room here with me. It doesn't seem to make any difference. We seem to be able to do it because, in the ether, in the other side, there's no real distance. That's all a
Yeah.
construct of this reality.
And I think scholars have realized that in the Bible, reincarnation was in Christianity until it was excised from the Bible around the time of the Crusades, I believe. And yeah, the Hindus have always been onto something, and
Yeah.
it just seems we go around again and again with the ones we love and the ones we don't love to learn some lessons and grow. So,
That's true, yes. And there's even a couple of references in the Bible, like one of them is where Jesus says Elijah, like they said, Elijah was supposed to come again. He said he is, and he indicated John the Baptist. So they did miss it.
oh.
Justinian, I think the emperor, I think he missed a few. He missed a few little bits there, but they were trying to create cohesion at that time, and so they just had to make some choices, I think, about what went in and what didn't. Yeah.
Great.
But a
Well,
lot of
Karen,
people know that it's real. They sense it and feel it. Yeah. Sorry.
yeah, no problem. Karen Joy, it has been an absolute pleasure. And I'm happy to say that Llewellyn Books is giving a copy of Lost Soul, Wise Soul to one of our listeners. So I'll put up information, but anybody can go to mysticfix.com for a chance to win that book. So thank you very, very much. And perhaps we'll be talking to you again sometime.
I would be delighted. Thank you very
All
much.
right. Have a
Lovely to
great
talk to
evening.
you.
That was author Karen Joy discussing the therapy side of past life regression. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. This is Mystic Fix on News Talk STL 1019 and 94.1.